Good morning, everyone. I'm Brenda O'Connor. On behalf of the Canadian Credit Union Association, I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. I just want to take a moment to introduce a few special guests. Stan Cho, MPP from Willowdale and Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Finance. Mike Harris, MPP from Kitchener-Conestoga. And Mike Schreiner, MPP from local Guelph here. CCUA is the National Trade Association for 236 credit unions and Caisses Populaires, including 62 here in Ontario. In collaboration with our industry partners, we advocate for opportunities to support credit union growth and competitiveness. Modernization of the Credit Union and Caisses Populaire Act has been an ongoing priority of the sector for many years, and one we have continued to advocate for. It has been over 25 years since this legislation was last substantially amended, and of course the financial services industry has changed dramatically since 1994. So we were very pleased with the budget's commitment to modernize the Act in 2020, and we've been working closely with the government in this effort. I want to thank Minister Rod Phillips and the Financial Services Regulatory Authority for their ongoing work to support Ontario credit unions. I extend our special thanks to Parliamentary Assistant Stan Cho and his staff for taking the time to understand the challenges of the sector and working with us in addressing them. Modernized legislation and regulation will allow credit unions to better compete with other financial institutions and provide consumers more choice. We are eager to hear the government's recommendations for the modernization of the Act, and we look forward to working with them to develop legislation that meets the needs of credit unions and their members today and into the future. On that note, I'm going to pass the mic to Mike Raz, Director of Government and Stakeholder Relations at Meridian Credit Union, our host today.
It's the Mike Show. Good morning, and thank you, Brenda. I'm Director of Government and Stakeholder Relations with Meridian Credit Union, and so on behalf of Meridian, welcome to Meridian, and specifically our Speedville Road branch in Guelph. This branch is one of 92 that we have across Ontario, where we serve over 340,000 members to help them achieve their financial and life goals and dreams. So let me first say a few words of thanks and appreciation to Tiffany and her team here at the Speedville branch. The last day of the month is always the busiest in a credit union branch. So when I approached Tiffany and her boss about holding a news conference in their lobby at 10 a.m. on January 31st, I did so with some trepidation, but she didn't bat an eyelash and welcomed us with open arms. In fact, she bought us coffee and croissants. So thank you, Tiffany and her team. I don't want to steal the thunder of Mr. Cho has to say, but I think we all know why we're here, at least I hope so. And that's to talk about the modernization of the Credit Union and Caisses Populaire Act. Now, I could go on for an hour talking about why modernizing this act is so important, but I don't have an hour. So, and most of you in the audience have heard my spiel before. So I'll focus on just one reason. And that reason is this: the credit union sector in Ontario, represented by at least a dozen different credit unions in the audience today, is a strategic asset of the province of Ontario. It's a strategic asset that should be encouraged, allowed to flourish and grow. It's a strategic asset that is impeded with an overly burdensome regulatory system and rules that sometimes impede growth and place us on an uncompetitive playing field. And I think that's what Mr. Cho and his colleagues are going to talk about today. I'm sure he'll talk about how credit unions are important financial institutions that represent more than 1 in 10 Ontarians, about how credit unions are the #1 choice of small business for financial services, about how important credit unions are for Ontario's farmers, about how important credit unions are to Ontario's families, especially those in the middle class struggling to make ends meet. At least that's what I hope he'll say. So let me conclude by saying, in anticipation of what I think is going to be good news, thank you. On behalf of Meridian Credit Union, on behalf of the entire credit union sector, thank you, Mr. Cho and colleagues, for listening to our concerns, to our ideas, to our sometimes off-the-wall suggestions, but mostly, thank you for acting. What is being announced today is just another step, a big step, no doubt, but just another step along the journey that will modernize the credit union sector in Ontario, and we thank Mr. Cho and his colleagues in the province of Ontario for offering to take this step with us and joining us on this journey. So it is my great pleasure now to introduce you to Mike Schreiner, the MPP for Guelph and leader of Ontario's Green Party, who has been a big champion of the credit union sector as well. And he tells me that this is his branch. This is where he does his banking. So it's even he's here on business and he's just as well. So I'll ask Mr. Schreiner to take the podium as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, everyone. For those of you not from Guelph, welcome to Guelph. I want to welcome my colleagues from across the aisle to Guelph, and this is my home branch, so I just came in to make a deposit and a withdrawal, and there were all these folks here, and I said, what's going on? And they politely invited me to be a part of this, this announcement, so thank you. I just want to say, as somebody who is both a credit union member, and I've only actually ever been a credit union member, so of the 1.6 million Canadians who are part of a credit union, I'm one of those. But I'm also one of the 150,000 businesses that bank at credit unions. And I can tell you, when I first started my business in 1995 on a farm just north of Guelph, and the business started to grow and we needed access to capital, I went to big banks, small banks, I went to the Business Development Bank of Canada, and it was a credit union who said, you know what, we believe in you, we believe in what your business is all about, and we'll provide you with the unsecured line of credit you need to grow your business. And I just actually sold that business last year, so thank you for 24 years of support. But it's also a reminder that it's been 25 years since the Credit Union and Caisse Populaire Act was modernized and updated. You know, that was prior to internet banking, prior to apps on my phone. I do most of my banking via my smartphone now. And I think it's time, and I, again, don't want to steal the MPP Cho's thunder here, but it is time to modernize the Act. And I've a long time advocated to the previous government for the need to modernize the Act, reduce the regulatory burden, expand the services that credit unions and Caisse Populaires can provide. And it's nice to see this government, and I think it's also, important to reach across party lines too. We were talking about that this morning, that, you know, we have lots of opportunities to battle each other in the House, but it's nice to have an opportunity to work together as well across party lines to do what's right for Ontario and Ontarians. And modernizing this Act is exactly that. So it's my honor to welcome my neighbor, MPP Mike Harris, to Guelph to say a few words as well.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I'll be rounding out the mic show for today, so thank you everybody for being here. I represent a largely rural riding which lies just to the west of Guelph, so I know how important credit unions are to the local fabric. They do a lot of great things, not only for community members, but also get quite heavily involved in the local community, so I wanted to thank you guys for that. And a lot of the credit unions here today are actually headquartered in southwestern Ontario, which is great to see as well. So I'm actually the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, so a lot of this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, admittedly. But I did want to take a moment to welcome my friend and colleague, the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Finance, Stan Cho, here to give a great news announcement. I know that this is something that's been 25 years in the making, so let's have him.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, thanks for that very kind introduction, Mike, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you all this morning, and I sure hope you like what I have to say after all of that.
It's not understanding everything I said.
Yeah, right. Well, it's great to be here at Meridian Credit Union as well, and we know that this is a fast-growing, innovative sector, and it's also a special privilege to be back in the beautiful city of Guelph. Some of you may know this, but when my dad first immigrated here from South Korea nearly 50 years ago, he chose to call Guelph home, and the city welcomed him with open arms. So it's a true thrill for me to be here today, and I'm joined by MPP for Kitchener-Conestoga, my friend Mike Harris, and of course my friend Mike Schreiner, MPP for Guelph, as well as Brenda O'Connor, and from the Canadian Credit Union Association, and Michael Rass from Meridian Credit Union, as well as many other representatives from credit unions across Ontario. Every day, credit unions help hardworking Ontarians, families, and businesses of all sizes invest in their future and help them get ahead. They hear firsthand from members about their financial health, their outlook on the economy, and what kind of future they envision for themselves living in our province. Credit unions are vital to the communities they serve, from right here in Guelph to communities big and small throughout our great province. In 2019, Minister Rod Phillips asked me to lead a review of legislation governing credit unions in Ontario. Our government has been focused on reducing the burdensome red tape and oftentimes excessive regulation that for far too long has made doing business in Ontario too difficult. And in consulting with the credit union sector, it's clear to see that the existing regulation of credit unions is a perfect example of this problem. When the credit union legislation came into effect in 1994, the industry and the world was very different. Since then, Ontario has adapted to new economic realities, but the credit union legislation simply hasn't kept pace. This is why we first announced in the 2019 Fall Economic Statement that our government is working to develop new legislation to replace the outdated 1994 law, to make sure credit unions can be more agile and competitive in the global economy while continuing to meet the needs of their members and the communities that they serve. As part of the review, we consulted with credit unions across the province, including many of the people in the room today. The goal was to find out how the legislation could better reflect the needs and expectations of the sector, and the needs, of course, of those people and communities who rely on these institutions. So I want to take a moment to thank everybody who participated in this review and provided feedback to the government on how credit unions and Caisse Populaire Act could be improved. I will say your input was invaluable. So the review is complete, and based on the feedback we received, I am making 3 key recommendations to the Minister as we work towards the introduction of new legislation. The first, to move from overly prescriptive legislation to a more principles-based approach. This approach would drive competitiveness, enable credit unions to provide innovative services while enhancing customer experience. I know that credit unions would much rather be serving their members and community than dealing with excessive red tape. And moving to a principles-based approach system would better reflect the unique and diverse needs of each credit union and their members. Second, to enhance customer experience and improve consumer protection, I am recommending that the legislation incorporate the industry-led Market Conduct Code. And to give Ontario and credit unions a competitive edge, I am also recommending that the government expand business and investment powers to allow credit unions to offer more services to the 1.7 million Ontarians they serve. These recommendations are part of our government's plan to modernize and streamline the financial services sector while also safeguarding the rights and interests of consumers. We are committed to building an Ontario where we work together, protect and build up our competitive advantages, and encourage one another to achieve our full potential. Our government looks forward to working with your sector and its members to make this vision a reality. And I look forward to continuing our work together to build on your success as an industry and ensure that you can continue to play a vital role in our economy and our communities. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take a few questions at this point, and I see some smiling faces, so that's a good sign.
I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay, appreciate it. Are there any questions? Yes.
Yeah. How about what's the timeline for this? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so I've already made these recommendations to the minister, and his staff is reviewing them as we speak, and I expect that we will move on legislation imminently.
Okay. What kind of expanded services were we talking about?
That's a really good question, and what we're trying to do here is maybe not outline, line by line what services they can offer, but model better maybe after the Federal Bank Act, which actually outlines for the banks what they cannot do or what services they cannot offer. That allows the freedom for credit unions, or banks in that case, to be flexible. I mean, 25 years ago, who would have predicted anything like fintech existing? I mean, the whole point here is to say, well, this is the services credit unions cannot work on, but open it up to be able to adapt with technologies as they evolve. And those details, we will actually, as soon as we're finished this announcement, we'll be sitting down for a roundtable to start those discussions.
How long has this been in the works?
So I was appointed as the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Finance in June, and my meetings began right away. And then we put out a consultation paper at the end of that summer, and many of the people you see in this room today were very heavily involved in letting us know what they would like to see for the industry and their communities.
Okay. I'm good.
Any others? All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and I can't wait to get that roundtable started. Thanks so much.